Welcome to Hit the Road with Mo and Joy. We're friends that met in kindergarten and we love to travel. Now we're sharing our experiences and inspiring you to explore. Whether you're traveling by sea, in a train, flying high, or road tripping, it's time to hit the road with Mo and Joy.
All right, perfect. Well, I guess let's get it rolling.
All right. Well, welcome back, listeners. We have a special Christmas edition interview today with Lynn Orr. She's a wife, mother, botanist, writer, avid reader, and a fellow traveler. Lynn, welcome.
Thanks, Joy. It's so good to see you guys.
Today, we're excited to talk to you about your epic trip at Christmas along the Elbe. It looks like you were gone for 10 days. You had guided tours in both Germany and the Czech Republic, and you went to the famous Christmas markets. I am so looking forward to hearing all about it.
Yeah, we're just about, in another couple weeks, we'll hit the 1 year mark. So it was really an amazing trip, and I'm excited to be here with you guys to talk about it.
Yeah, I'm really excited too. Joy, this was a great idea. Kudos for coming up with this idea. And I love the fact that we're actually kind of doing the whole Christmas theme vibe for the month of December. So this will be pretty cool and give us a break from our Ireland road trip, right? All right, well, let's get started. Lynn, I'm going to have to ask the general question first. I've known you for many years, and Christmas has a very special meaning in your family. As a matter of fact, when we were getting this interview started, you were panning over to your crystal Christmas tree and actually had an ornament in your hand. Can you share a little bit about the meaning of Christmas and your family ties?
Yes, absolutely. So growing up, Christmas was always special in our family. I'm one of 5 kids, and we didn't have a whole lot, but my parents always made Christmas special, and real Christmas club where you would set up a savings account so you could buy your kids Christmas presents at the end of the year. My parents always made the holiday special, but what really took it over the top for me is when I met my husband. His mother, Sandy, was an absolute Christmas fanatic. When I first met John, he told me about his mom's passion for Christmas, and I thought 2 things. One, she was either really crazy and this was going to be the gaudiest display I had ever seen, or 2, it was right out of Southern living. And I think, Mo, you'll echo that my mother-in-law's Christmas displays were really right out of Southern living. She had a really rough childhood. And I think as she and my father-in-law progressed through life and my father-in-law's career, they were married at 17. And so they really made a life for themselves, really ended up in a great place in life. So I think she vowed that if her life was better than hers was growing up, that she would make Christmas very special for her kids and her grandkids. And she did. And so her Christmas tradition, which has really become my husband and mine, is putting up multiple Christmas trees. So she had a large home. Her home could hold all these full-size trees. She usually put up 14 full-size. So you can imagine.
Joy?
Yeah.
Joy, did you hear that?
I heard 14.
14, yes. Each tree had a special theme. So, for example, she had a crystal tree. She had a snowman tree, a Santa Claus tree, a nutcracker tree, a Tennessee tree, because that's where she and my father-in-law were from. The list goes on. When she passed away, we inherited her ornaments. Plus, over the years of 30 years of marriage, I've collected a lot of my own, whether it be through gifts or purchases I've made myself or what I call junk shopping. I love to hit an antique store. And so the tradition is alive in our house on a what I'll call a good year, where we're really ambitious. We'll put up 7 trees. This year, we're going to put up 4.
Yeah, so Joy, I remember going to a couple of parties at Sandy and Cracky's house, and I distinctly remember the Tennessee tree. I'm talking full out, decked out in the Tennessee vols. You would have
Wow.
loved it. There was like a blue and white tree, the crystal tree. I
A
can't
pink
even
tree.
remember. Yeah, the
Yeah.
pink tree. I can't even remember, but it really was beautiful and not gaudy. So she really did make it very, very special. And speaking of the Christmas theme, you guys have also done a number of Christmas travels over the year. I know that we actually joined you guys one year for the Dickens Christmas in Franklin, Tennessee. That is just a really great event. And I think you guys have gone a couple of times back to that. Can you share a little bit about Dickens Christmas?
Absolutely. So Dickens Christmas has a special place in our heart because Franklin, Tennessee is where my mother-in-law went to high school, where she was born and raised, and we still have ties there. So my brother-in-laws, two of her three sons live in Nashville. Actually, one's in Franklin, the other one is in Brentwood. When their children were little, my in-laws built a second home, small little home off the square in Franklin. And so now that second home is a family retreat. It's no one lives there. It's just a place where we can go and spend a weekend just to relax, hang out on the front porch, play in the garden a little bit, and just rejuvenate. So Franklin has a very special place in our hearts because of that. But what we love, our most favorite time of year in Franklin, is really the second Saturday and Sunday in December for what they call Dickens Christmas. And what it is, it's basically a street festival. The Franklin Chamber of Commerce has vendors that apply to have a spot along the square in some of the offshooting streets from the square. And you'll find anything from ceramists to people selling sweatshirts and t-shirts to kettle corn, all types of food vendors, and all types of arts and crafts. The special part about it is that they have people from the town that dress up in Dickens era clothing. So you may walk down the street and see Ebenezer Scrooge. You might see Tiny Tim. You might see the whole family from Dickens Christmas. And people take it upon themselves to create their own costumes and just wander down the streets. And it's just very festive. Along with that, the city, because Nashville is Music City, so they do hire musicians at certain places throughout the street festival. They may have roaming carolers or someone in period clothing playing a violin. Off a couple of the streets, they have stages where they are leveraging the talent in Nashville and providing a venue for people to perform for the public free of cost. So it's a really special event. It really kicks off the holiday season. And I think we could probably do a whole episode just on Franklin and Dickens Christmas.
Yeah, we
Sounds
definitely
like
probably
it.
could.
They source their costumes and then dress in their regalia and walk down the streets and mix and mingle with all of the local town people. So it's really fun. It's really festive and something that we really look forward to.
Michelle was telling me that some of the folks even tried to speak in Old English terminology and
They
as
do.
well.
They really do.
Which
They own
sounded
the
fun.
character, right?
Yeah.
They own the character. And at first, like the first time I went, I thought, okay, but it's really part of the charm.
Yeah. It sounds really cool. Well, Lynn, onto the cruise. Could you tell us a little bit what caught your eye about this particular cruise? I've heard about Viking and its cruise line and how it compares to some of the other ones. The Viking cruises just feel very special, and just wanted to know what went into that decision to do this one.
Absolutely. It's a trip that we had our eyes on for quite a while.
Mm-hmm.
Most especially because it was a trip that we had planned to do with my mother-in-law when our daughter was old enough to join us. So all of these years, we've always had it on our bucket list. And my mother-in-law passed away about 10 years ago, but it's been on that bucket list ever since. What attracted us to it was all of the different markets that you could visit in a relatively short period of time without having to pack up your bags and move hotel to hotel every single day. So the advantage of doing the river cruise is that you unpack your bags once and the cruise line takes care of everything else. They have transportation ready for you. They have different excursions that you can sign up for. And all you have to do is show up. They take care of the rest. So that was very attractive to us because we didn't have to rent a car and map our own way through various towns in Europe. The thing about Viking that I will say is we were on two ships. We were on the Viking Bela and the Viking Astrild. The reason that we were on two ships is because there was an issue with the lock system on the Elbe River. And the thing that impressed me about Viking is if you've ever been in corporate America, you know about business continuity plans. Viking's perfection of a business continuity plan is perfection, literally personified, because they have to be prepared for weather. They have to be prepared for transportation problems and all kinds of things. And so the reason we were on two ships is there was a problem with the lock system. So the boat that we were on, the Bela, could only get so far down the Elbe. And same thing for the cruise ship coming the other direction. So we literally performed a ship swap where you were in the same number cabin that you were on your original ship on the next ship, because that's how they problem solved for not being able to get those ships through the lock system. Viking is amazing at that. And I was very impressed, having worked very closely with business continuity plans in my own line of business. I thought that was very impressive. But the thing I want to say about Viking is this. If you are a person that loves the nightlife and you love gambling and you want multiple ship bars that are open till all hours of the night, the cruise line is not for you. Viking is lower key. There is no gambling. They do have a bar. It's actually quite a cozy bar, but it's only open till say 11 or 11:30 at night. They always have live entertainment in the bar, but there's no gambling on the ship. And the ship for this particular cruise is very intimate. It's 98 passengers and I think about 30 staff members. So you really do get to know your fellow passengers. And I will tell you, the accommodations are beautiful, absolutely beautiful. This was the second Viking trip I took and absolutely loved it. The other thing that I'll say is that Viking is, a lot of people call it the old person cruise line because it tends to be retirees, right? So people in their late 50s, 60s, 70s, and maybe even older. That didn't bother me at all, right? Because at this point in my life, I am lower key. I'm not looking to party all the time. I want to go to bed at a reasonable hour and get up and do all of the adventures. So if you're more of a person that craves that nightlife and craves shows and gambling, it's probably not the line for you. But on the other hand, if you want something more intimate, you want very lovely accommodations, great food and themed food most every night with more of a jazz type of feel in the bar, then I would say this is a great line for you. The last thing I'll add on that is our daughter is 21 and we took her on the cruise. She was the youngest person on the cruise. All things said, it didn't bother her. She enjoyed interacting with the older cruise members, and she's very social to begin with, so we didn't think it was going to be a problem. But there weren't any other people her age on the trip. I think the next youngest folks on there were in their early 30s. So that's just one thing to keep in mind. If you're looking to take your teenagers, it's probably not the cruise line for you either, because they really don't have any activities geared towards that age group.
So Viking's website calls travelers to take part in a time-honored European holiday tradition with this 10-day cruise, and it beckons passengers to stroll among colorful stalls, mingle with the locals, to revel in Berlin's festive atmosphere. It spends 2 days in Prague as well. Would you say it delivered on that marketing or?
Oh, heck yes, absolutely.
Okay.
You know, for me, being a Christmas junkie, I suppose, and Mo can attest to this, I have probably thousands of ornaments. I don't know. I've never counted, but I love all things Christmas, and luckily so does my husband and daughter. So I would say that the cruise line definitely delivered. We were able to visit, I think, 7 different Christmas markets in different towns. And you just I can't articulate how wonderful the atmosphere was to spend such cozy days. You know, it's cold, you're all bundled up. You can get glue wine, which is like a mulled wine, and just walking through these markets, and the atmosphere was just unparalleled. It was really spectacular. So I would say, yes, they definitely delivered. Now, the other thing I'll say about Viking is, depending on the dates of your trip, your itinerary might be opposite of what's published on the website. So for example, I think the Elbe trip is published as Berlin to Prague. Well, our trip, because of the dates that we selected, were Prague to Berlin. So it was the agenda was just opposite.
So what would you say would be your key highlights from that trip?
I think a couple of key highlights, because not only did we do the Christmas markets, we did some sightseeing as well. So one of the things that stands out to me is we went to a place called Bad Schandau, which is known as Saxon Switzerland. And so the reason they call it that is because that part of the mountains in Germany reminded the person who first named the location of his homeland in Switzerland. Just beautiful, beautiful mountains, beautiful trails. So from a nature perspective, that was probably my favorite hike that we did. The other things that were special, I loved Prague. I had never been to Prague. My father was Eastern European. Although he was second generation in this country, it was really cool to go to Prague and see some of the Slavic roots. And one of the things that I didn't consider on that trip was being in Prague and seeing some of the Christmas ornaments and the local display in the basement of a church of the traditions in that area. I never realized it, but those were the traditions that my father's family celebrated. And those were the types of ornaments that my Bubba, we called our grandmother Bubba, had on her Christmas tree. So I think that was a special tie for me that I didn't necessarily think about before the trip. So I loved Prague from that aspect. I think my favorite town was Dresden. For a European city, I could live there. It was that beautiful. And the museums there were stunning. And so I would say those were probably my top three things. And of course, the Christmas markets are number one, right? But so these would be the top three after the markets themselves.
Tell us two things. Could we hear more about the markets themselves? Like what to expect when you're there? And then also the places that you were, did you get any I Hate American vibes?
Not at all. And I think it's because there are so many Americans that visit those areas because of the Viking Cruise Line, and they really build up the economies of these small towns, because some of the towns that we go to are little, right? They may only have, a few thousand residents. That's probably an underestimation, but I think these towns really count on the tourism for their local economy. So I would say that we did not experience any anti-American behavior at all. The one thing that I thought was extremely interesting as we made our way towards Berlin, of course, Berlin was the site of the Berlin Wall in World War II and all of the atrocities that happened in Germany during that time. The one sentiment that my husband and I both picked up on, and this came from two different tour guides that we had in two different cities, Germany is not proud of their World War II past. And most of the locals that we interfaced with, whether they were tour guides or assistant tour guides, they really don't even want to talk about it. Right? They just kind of want to, that was history that happened before them, and they would rather not discuss it. They acknowledge and they understand what happened, but I think they're trying really hard to separate themselves from the atrocities of the past. So I thought that was really interesting. The other thing I thought was interesting was the Berlin Wall literally runs down the center of Berlin. And I don't think I really realized, I think in my head, even through textbooks, I had this visual of countryside with a wall running through it, right? No, it is right in the middle of the city. So much so that the wall was literally built up against an apartment building.
Hmm.
I'm not even sure I would call it an apartment building, right? What would you call it? Government sponsored housing, right? So the wall literally cut through, so you couldn't go in one entrance because you would be on the wrong side of the wall. So I don't think I really realized the proximity of that Berlin Wall and how it literally split families. So that was eye-opening for me as well.
Wow, that's just pretty crazy. I had two thoughts. One, I'm going to backtrack for just a second. That's so cool that you got to real life experience your family's roots. I remember years ago when I was first getting to know you around Christmas time, and you would carry out the traditions with the egg etching. Mm-hmm. Joy, you would really like that, by the way. So,
I've never heard of such.
That's what I thought of. But the other thing is, I went to Germany, but it's been so many years ago. My recollections are not as fresh. But Joy, listening to her have those descriptions made me think about those feelings and impressions that we had when we were in Belfast. That's the first thing that I was kind of thinking through.
Very much so, because Belfast went through a horrible period, right? Two different Irish contingencies against each other, the Catholics and Protestants. And I would echo that, Mo. I would say that you're spot on, that those same sentiments and feelings as an American walking through Belfast are probably what you would experience in Berlin as well. But going back to the Eastern European traditions real quick. So Mo mentioned the eggs. They're called pisanki, and really it's an Easter tradition that you decorate your Easter eggs and you etch on them. But the Christmas tradition that I think Mo is referring to is on Christmas Eve. There are very specific things that we eat on Christmas Eve, and a way that you set your table that it ties back to quote unquote the old country. Traditionally, we eat fish on Christmas Eve, and then we have other dishes that have a religious significance. And then there's always one empty place setting because it ties back to the Bible. Leaving one extra place setting for someone that may show up on your doorstep. I always thought I'm like, why does our family do this? I didn't really tie it all together until I was in Prague. And I thought to myself, oh my gosh, all of these years, my family has practiced this. Little did I realize that it tied all the way back to their Slavic roots.
Wow, very cool. And I guess I did accidentally get it mixed up with the Easter. So my bad, but honestly,
easy to do.
Image, the eggs and the decorating just immediately popped up into my mind when you were talking about your traditions.
Well, one of the pictures that I'm going to send you guys is the ornaments that were on my grandmother's tree were largely made of straw. I never thought much of it, right? I'm like, okay, that's grandmother's ornaments. That's Bubba's ornaments. And when I went to the display in the church basement in Prague, that's the traditional Christmas decor. And so I'll actually share some pictures of those with you guys, and I actually ended up buying ornaments like that for each of my siblings and our first cousin, because we all remember them being on our grandmother's tree, and we're not sure whatever happened to the ornaments. So I did get each one of them one of those ornaments just as a remembrance.
I can imagine going in that basement and seeing that, and you gave me the tingles just even thinking about it, being like,
seriously, it was like an aha moment where my heritage was tied all together.
Right.
I don't know why I never thought about that, but it really, I was like, oh, it really does go back to the old country. It's not just my crazy family.
That's really special, though, that you were able to have those aha moments. Joy was actually recently talking about aha moments when you travel. So it really is, Joy, I'm thinking about the quote that we were talking about recently. You can't really plan the experience. It is just something that happens along the way, and it's the things that you weren't anticipating that I've always found makes the trip no matter if it's a weekend getaway or a long planned trip far away, it really comes down to those unexpected moments, something you find, or deepening a relationship with someone that you have, getting to know them on a different level. Those are the things to me that just make travel so special. And it's different than everyday life. I mean, of course, you can still mimic some of those things in everyday life, but when you travel and you're away and you're out of your routine, there is a difference. Wouldn't you guys agree?
For sure, Mo. And that's actually a great thought, because the one thing I'll say is, even though you're on a cruise and you have a daily agenda, right? And there's extra excursions that you can pick to do these different adventures. Even though you're on a schedule, there's still those aha moments, just
Right.
like I talked about in the church basement.
Mhm.
I don't want people to think that just because their vacation seems so incredibly scheduled, that they're not going to get to experience that. I had the opposite. You know, I did experience that a couple of different times. And that's also the bonus, that when you schedule your own trip and you have more leisure time, if you like a particular location, you're traveling yourself, so you can spend as much time there as you like. With Viking, you're in a museum for a specific time block. So even though you may be reading all the signs and for all of the exhibits and getting really into it, you have to be back at the bus at a certain time, right? So that's the other thing that I'll say. With Viking, you have to stick to the schedule, and they have specific reasons for that. They give you as much time as they possibly can in each location, but they want to show you as much as possible in a specific period of time. And then what that does is, like Meissen and Dresden, I love those areas. Those would be areas that I may go back to on my own and spend a couple of days in each city to really explore, because I only got a little taste of it. So that's another thing to keep in mind about the river cruises, is that time blocking.
And a quick question around that too, was there a lot of activities right outside the boat, like at the port, or were you having to do transportation and the excursions more so?
I would say in half the ports, we were able to get off the ship and walk into the city. The other half, they had transportation waiting for us as we exited the ship. We might have to walk a couple of blocks to get on the bus, and then the bus would transport us to whatever the location is. But this is the beauty of Viking. You don't have to think through any of that. Literally, you show up, you know what bus you're on, and they take care of the rest. For those of us that are working a lot in corporate America and you just want to take a vacation and not have to have the stress and the forethought to go into all of that planning, it's really a relaxing way to do it, where you just show up and they take care of everything.
And I had no idea that it was such a small cruise, like 90 people compared to 6,000 people.
Right.
It's such a difference, and you're not fighting the crowds, and you're not fighting. And then I love the idea of those smaller ports too, where you were saying, you know, maybe there's 2,000 people or whatever in the town. So it's just a whole different way of thinking about things.
It is. And the reason the boats are so small on the Elbe is because the Elbe is not a deep river. So they have to have smaller ships to be able to cruise down the river. I like the smaller ship. The other cruise that I went on with Viking was from Paris up to Normandy. Speaking about World War II, I have a thing for World War II. So it was, and Paris actually, so France. So it was a really interesting cruise for me. That one probably had a few hundred people on it, but I really like the intimacy of the 98 passengers, and you got to know your crew, right? So the guy that played piano every night, by the end of the trip, you're like, hey, how are you? You know, having conversation, or the people that wait your tables, or the folks that your cabin stewards. It gave you an opportunity to really get to know the crew, and the service is really unparalleled.
All right. So I got to ask, how was the food?
Mo, the foodie. She's always got to know about the food. Mo, I will tell you, the food on the ship itself was delicious. Every night we had a themed dinner. Loved it. And their desserts, Mo's a dessert person. The desserts were excellent. Kudos to the menu, the chef on the ships, because it was really, really good. And of course you have 3 meals a day, right? So you go in and have your breakfast, and it's mostly a European breakfast, right? So they have salmon and they have fish, other fish. They have sausages, different than American sausages, eggs, oatmeal, yogurts, cheeses. It's a little different than the standard American breakfast, but very good. And then lunch, you could do lunch in one of 2 places. You could go to the ship's dining room and order off the menu, or there were probably a dozen tables in the bar. And the advantage of sitting in the bar is the whole back of the ship is glass. And you could sit in the back of the bar and just watch the countryside go by, which was one of my favorite things to do. And even when we were cruising, I always like to sit in the bar because they have really comfy couches and club chairs. And I would read a book or just have a drink and watch the countryside go by. And that was really one of my favorite things as well while being on the ship.
Wow, Joy. Looking at countryside, reading a book.
Sounds delicious.
Right?
Cushy couch, cushy chair.
Yeah,
Perhaps
comfy,
a drink.
cozy. And they have blankets. Like if you're chilly, they bring out these wonderful blankets to throw on your lap. Yeah, it's cool. But Mo, the other thing I wanted to say about food was at the Christmas markets themselves. So one of the things that I know that Mo would absolutely love was one of the common desserts that we saw at every market that we went to. And it is, I know you guys have gone to the fair here. So, like an elephant ear, right? But what they do is, do you know what an elephant ear is, Mo? Come on, you do.
I don't do fair food, which I know a lot of people think is crazy, but I am not a fair food person.
Girl,
Like
you're
a
missing
funnel
out.
cake.
So not a funnel cake. It's like a fried dough. It's almost like a flat donut, like a big flat donut that instead of it being glazed, it's covered in cinnamon and sugar.
Oh.
But what they had that I think Mo would like are chimney cakes. So they take that dough and they roll it, and then they cover it in butter, cinnamon and sugar, and then cut it into strips. And then they take those strips and they wrap it around a wooden dowel where you're kind of spiralizing it, overlapping as you go. And then they put those dowels on an open flame. And it's kind of like a spit, right? Where those dowels rotate and cooks the dough. Then when they're ready, they take them off the dowel, and you can either eat them like that, get some whipped cream on them, or most people would get them with vanilla ice cream and chocolate sauce.
Oh.
We got them without the ice cream, and they were absolutely delicious. I don't care what Mo says. If she went there, she would eat it and she would love it. And then the other food, which I hesitated for the first few markets and didn't eat this just because, it's not really healthy for you, nor are the chimney cakes. But the sausages, the homemade sausage is ridiculous. It's the absolute best sausage I have ever eaten in my life. And to the point where, I had a bite of my husband's, and then I went and bought my own because I didn't want to share. It was that good. And normally here, if you offered me sausage, I'd be like, oh, I'm good, thanks.
Yeah.
No, my mouth is watering sitting here thinking about that sausage. So Mo, you would eat the sausage and you would eat the chimney cake, and you would love both of them. She's sticking her tongue out.
I will take your word for that, for sure. So I guess after hearing all this, and I'm really glad that you took the time to share some details about the food in the cruise versus the food at the markets, because that is good to know. Having the experience behind you now, so it's been about a year, like you said, is there anything that you would do to enhance the experience if you were to repeat this particular trip?
So what I would do is Viking offers you the opportunity to add days onto your trip on either the front end or the back end. And had we had enough vacation time and had it aligned with Lauren's school schedule, I would have added days on the front end of the trip to either spend more time in Prague doing sightseeing on our own, or after the trip, spending more time in Berlin, because there was so much to do in Berlin that we just didn't have time for, especially because I'm very interested in the World War II stuff. Like I said, there were many things that I wish I would have had time to do. So that would be the only way I would change this trip. What I will say about the Christmas markets in general is Viking offers a number of Christmas markets. And the other one that's on my radar is the Strasbourg, France one. And because Strasbourg bumps up to Germany, that part of France bumps to Germany, there's a blend of French and German culture. And
Sure.
I'm a Francophile, so I would love to do that particular trip. Stepping back 1 second, because Joy asked me, how were the Christmas markets? And I'm not really sure I replied to that.
I don't think you did.
Yeah, the Christmas markets themselves are awesome. Some of them are bigger than others, and there are some similarities amongst the various markets. For example, you would probably find similar Christmas ornaments across most of the markets. One of the types of ornaments I like to collect are blown glass or Christopher Radko-like ornaments, and I really only found those at one market, which surprised me because I expected to see them at all of the markets. Also, depending on where your Christmas cruise is, the area influences what's at the market. So, for example, where we were is where nutcrackers first started. So there were a lot of nutcrackers and there were a lot of smokers. And by smoker, what I mean is it might be like a little fat Santa who has a hole where his mouth is and it burns incense and the smoke comes out of Santa's mouth. Or there might be a Christmas tree and at the top of the Christmas tree is the hole and the smoke comes out of the Christmas tree. So there were quite a number of vendors that sold those types of things because that was the specialty of the area. There were also, and I bought Mo one of these, there was one vendor that sold rolling pins that were carved, different designs carved into it. And if you know Mo, we all know she's a baker. So what you could do is roll out your cookie dough and then run this patterned rolling pin over it and then cut your cookies the way you want them cut. So it impresses, I guess it's like an embosser for cookies. So that was one of the cool finds that I found at one of them. Another market had a blacksmith. And you wouldn't believe the things that this blacksmith was making. Anything from a mug to dice, which I was like, I never saw a blacksmith make dice before, right? In addition to horseshoes and Christmas ornaments and things like that. So each of them have their own little flair and own specialist, if you will, craftsmen that participate in the market. The other thing that was pretty common were like tablecloths or table runners, lacy, hand stitched type things. So all very well done, all very handcrafted, but there's also some that are mass produced, right? Like people buy a bunch of merchandise and then they come to the market to sell it. So, but I tend to prefer the locally made, handcrafted stuff. So each market has their own flair, I guess, in summary. Some are bigger than others, but each one of them offers a festive atmosphere that you just can't put a price on. And it's unlike any type of festival I've been to here in the States. Closest to us is Savannah. Savannah has a little Christmas market that they put on, or Christmas village on the river there in Savannah. While quaint, it's nothing in comparison to these markets, right? New York has Bryant Park. Bryant Park is lined with all of these chalets, again, with different vendors selling either merchandise or food or drink or whatever. While it's festive, it's not even to the level of these markets in Europe.
Was there a big difference you could call out between Germany and Prague's markets, or were they pretty similar?
No, because it was in the same general area. Okay. I think they all had a similar flavor. Now, this is where I'd like to compare and take the Strasbourg trip to compare what the markets were like in
Right.
Germany, Prague versus that part of Europe. But I think, like I
Well,
said,
we'll
I
have you
think,
back on when you do that.
yeah,
I'd love
I'm
to
like,
hear about
let's
that.
go. Girl trip, let's go.
Oh, that.
Yeah. And that's the other thing I should mention. Viking is not cheap. So what you need to do is, if you're interested, you need to watch their promotions, because they do offer discounts on their trips. And then there are times where they offer to include your flight in the price of the trip,
Oh.
which is great because they do all of the finagling of scheduling, getting you from point A to B to C to D, right? And so you can often watch their website or watch their promotions to get that flight included, and they take on all the responsibility of figuring out how you get someone, because we're in Jacksonville, from Jacksonville, Florida, say to Atlanta or New York, to either directly into Prague or Berlin, or maybe you have another stop in a European city. So to not have to plan that yourself,
Mm-hmm.
I
And the
think is a
time
really
difference and
right,
all the
and
things.
connections in the airport and all of that. For me, it was worth them
Right.
taking care of it. So
Right, and not having to think.
yeah.
Yep.
Oh, and that's the other thing. When you first get on the boat, right, you come with your luggage and you leave your luggage at the front door, right? You go and you check in. Hi, where are the oars? Great. Here's your luggage here. And you get your luggage tags in the mail beforehand. So you have your luggage tags on it, and then you just go do what you want to do. Go to the bar, get a drink, go hang out. And then all of a sudden you get to your room and your luggage is there. And so, it's really nice service. And like I said, you unpack once and you're good to go for the rest of the trip.
What advice would you give fellow travelers if they're interested in this cruise? Did you feel like the cruise itself was too long, too short, just right? I know you said you would probably add some days in either Prague or Berlin at the beginning or end of it, but what about the cruise itself?
I thought the cruise itself was great. Most of the time you are traveling either in the afternoon or overnight, downriver
Mm-hmm.
or upriver, whichever way you're traveling. I really enjoyed the days where, say, we needed a full day to get between one place and the other. I enjoyed those days on the ship because we played cards, we read our books, and like I said, watch the world go by. Even when you're on the ship, which isn't a whole lot of time, it was really relaxing and enjoyable. I don't think I would change anything about the cruise itself. It might be interesting to see if not changing ships made a difference. For me, and like I said, understanding business continuity plans, I was like, well, dang, we do have to pack up, but they took care of the rest. We're in the same cabin number.
Mm-hmm.
I was very impressed. They have excellent BCP coordinators in their company, for sure. For me, it wasn't a big deal that we had to do that. I think there were some older passengers on the trip that consistency in their schedule is required.
Uh-huh.
And I think some of the older travelers got bent out of shape about having to do that. But in general, I don't think it happens very often, but they're professionals at what they do.
So I specifically wanted to ask, what is the Green Vault? I thought it sounded very mysterious.
Yeah, so the Green Vault is really a museum in Dresden. It touts itself, I think, as being the largest treasure collection in Europe. And it's all different kinds of treasure. It's like things made out of metals. It's jewelry. It's paintings. It's all kinds of things. And I think it started, I actually looked this fact up for you guys. It was founded in 1723 by Augustus the Strong. And the Green Vault, back to World War II, was bombed during World War II. And they've rebuilt it, and it's absolutely beautiful. So really, they call it a Green Vault, but it is a museum. And their website says they have a few thousand pieces of jewelry. They have bronze statues, amber art pieces, enamel works from Limoges, China, all kinds of things. We saw some jewelry, didn't see a whole lot. And this is one of those moments where I'll say, we were time boxed. So we only had a certain amount of time in the museum. I would have loved to have spent all day there to really get past the highlights and see all of the exhibits. But we saw the high points and checked that box, but I would definitely have that on my list to go back and spend more time.
I would like to hear about Prague's Old Town, the astronomical clock. What was that about?
So the clock is basically a clock tower. It's in the Old Town, and I think it was originally maybe the town hall, but and I have a picture of this and I can send it to you guys too, but its clock mechanism basically has three components. It's like an astrological dial. It's got statues of various saints on either side. Every hour on the hour, it's animated. Like these little figures come out, and it's I don't know if you guys have ever seen the Glockenspiel in Munich. It's a like cuckoo clock type mechanism, right? Where the doors open and something happens. It's very similar to that. Don't ever call it a cuckoo clock though, because they'll be people would be highly offended by that because it's such a simple comparison. But I don't even remember how old it is, but it is incredibly old. And I think it's only ever been out of service for a short period of time, but has been redone over the years. And they're very proud of it. And it's really, you want to stick around on the square to the top of the hour just to watch clock's mechanism. So it's pretty cool.
And can you talk to us also about the city of 100 spires?
So Prague is considered the city of 100 spires. And if you go to the highest point in Prague and look down upon the city, you're going to see tons of church steeples and towers and steeples on other buildings. And because there are so many of them, they call it the city of 1,000 spires, or 100 spires rather. So the skyline is really beautiful. And I think before we started the podcast, I told y'all I'd find that picture just to give you a small taste of what that skyline looks like. But it's really and truly a beautiful city.
I have to ask, after all of this, and we haven't even discussed half of the things that you've done, do you have any Christmas bucket list trips besides the cruise that you mentioned previously?
The first one that's on the horizon is going to Dickens Christmas in about a month. So we're going to do that. And then there's a couple that I want to do. I've never been to Helen, Georgia. And everybody says that Helen, Georgia has a cute little Christmas.
You've never been to Helen, Georgia?
I have never been to Helen, Georgia. My husband has a thing against Helen, Georgia. So.
That surprises me, but it is a really great town. I'll be really curious to hear how you feel about Helen, Georgia. I have done that like 2 times, and it's nice, but it is definitely touristy. So I'll be interested to hear what you think about that.
Yeah. The other place that's on my list is a place called Bronner's, which I think is the United States' largest Christmas store. And it's in Michigan, I believe, if memory serves me. My husband is dying to take me there. I've never been there. So we're going to do that someday. And then this is really a small town thing, but in my hometown in Ohio, there's a place called Cranach's, and they put on a display at Christmas time and at Easter. We'll be there for Thanksgiving. So that's another thing, little holiday special trip that we're going to be doing is a trip to Cranach's to see their display. And then there's a place in Akron, Ohio called the Stan Hewitt House. And we already have tickets for that while we're in Ohio to go see their Christmas festivities. So those are, and the last thing that we have on our horizon is here in St. Augustine. Of course, we have Nights of Lights, right? We all know that. There's the Villa Zoraida house. Have you guys been to that?
No,
I haven't heard of
I
it.
hadn't either. It's a real Moroccan looking house near Flagler College. It's right by the Leitner Museum. And they have candlelight tours this year of the interior of that home decorated for Christmas. So I've lived here for years. I've never done that. And so it's another bucket list item to cross that off my list this year.
Oh, wow. So, Joy, I don't know about you, but I've never heard of any of those things really that she's mentioned. I'll say in the back of my mind, just because I grew up loving Southern Living magazine, I've always wanted to go visit Dahlonega, Georgia.
That's on my list too, Mo. Yeah.
I, I've always heard that it is just so nice. And it's so funny because for the longest time, total confession, I could not pronounce the name correctly because it's kind of an interesting spelled town, right? Funny enough, my son's good friend, he has a family member from Dahlonega. So I've been able to kind of start getting some details, and I'm really curious to compare Dahlonega to Mount Dora, which I went to
Mhm.
finally with my mom last year. I do think that there will be some key differences. Obviously, it's in Georgia versus Florida. The climate will probably be different. Yeah, I don't know anything about the Michigan, and I would be curious to know if other Christmas aficionados would have any other tips. And I wanted to point out to you, Lynn, as you're considering your European markets, I had a well-traveled friend recommend that you also look into the Christmas markets in Poland.
Ooh, yeah.
So I had told her about your cruise with Viking and the locations, and she said that if you're really into that, you really need to look at the Poland Christmas markets.
You know, that
So,
makes sense, Mo, because the ornaments that I really love, the Christopher Radko inspired ornaments, they're all made in Poland. And so that would be a great one to put on my list. The other thing that I was going to mention, Mo, is don't forget we went to Laurel, Mississippi at Christmas.
oh, I
Remember?
forgot. Yeah, share
Yeah.
that quickly.
Yeah. So if any of your listeners watch HGTV, there's a show with Ben and Aaron Napier called Hometown. And so Michelle and I had been watching that show, and I don't know, has been 3 or 4 years, decided to road trip to Laurel to see what was happening there. And so it was during Christmas. So we got to see their downtown in the midst of its reinvigoration, decorated for
Yes.
Christmas. We went to Ben and Aaron's store. We saw Ben's workshop and all the
Yep.
goods that he was making there. What else did we do when we were there, Mo? We did a lot of shopping. We went through every shop in that town.
Oh my
Um,
gosh. Joy,
we had some
I'm not,
food.
yes, I'm not a big shopper. Joy Lynn drugged me through every
Every shop.
what do you call those? Antique shop. Ooh,
Yeah, we're
that
going,
was a
girl.
little bit rough.
We're looking for those 1940s and 50s ornaments to put on my retro tree. We're gonna hit all the spots. So I drug her through there. We got some really cute pictures from there too. In fact, one of my favorite pictures of us is from a selfie that you took there, Mo. And
I remember
yes,
you distinctly complaining about how boring the road trip was.
well, listen, it's a long drive from Jacksonville to Laurel,
Uh,
Mississippi, and there's no easy way to get there, right? So if you're gonna drive, and Michelle was kind enough to drive, but when she drives, you listen to her music, and so that was okay with
Right.
me because she has good music taste. So, but yeah, be prepared if you're coming from Northeast Florida. It's a hike, but well worth it. And I think the other place I'd like to go, girls trip with the three of us here, is Texas. Chip and Joanna Gaines would remind me of the town.
Waco.
Waco, right? We need to look and see if they do something for the holidays. Regardless, I'd like to go there to the silos and her little restaurant and everything. But I bet they do something for Christmas too.
I bet you're right.
Your listeners are probably like, oh, I'm Christmased out. I don't know that I ever get Christmased out. It's like some people like to knit, some people like to paint. I think my hobby is Christmas.
Christmasing.
Yeah, Christmasing. Yeah.
Yeah,
All the
speaking
flavors.
of Christmasing, I think my sister is intentionally trying to annoy me. Like, earlier and earlier every year, but I've been helping out some with my nieces recently, and I kid y'all not, that girl busted out her Christmas decorations on Halloween, and when I was there on Thursday, had the house 95% decorated, and it was so annoying. Even like the screen on her TV was Christmas, playing light background music. Ho, ho, ho.
I love Crystal. And don't think I didn't spy that Christmas tree in your Instagram post. Because I did. I was like, oh, look at Crystal. She's already decorated for Christmas.
Well, so Lynn, obviously with you taking on the multiple Christmas trees, like for some of us, doing one is a lot. So obviously you have to get a jump, but let's kind of put that to the side. So I guess, Joy, I'm going to ask you, are you an early decorator like that, or are you more traditional? Like for me, I will not put up anything Christmas until at least the day after Thanksgiving. Usually I start 12/1.
I am not much of a decorator.
We can make house
I don't
calls,
have-
Joy.
But I do love seeing all the lights, and I used to be grumpy about the people that would start doing it the day after Halloween or whatever, but I've gotten to where I don't mind, and I like seeing all the different lights and decorations, and why not? Just go ahead and extend it. It's the most wonderful time of the year, so why not bump it out on either end? Make it a little earlier and a little later too.
To your point, Joy, I think in general, people are kinder and happier during that time of year. And I think when people get a head start, it's really to invoke those feelings.
Yes.
I'm a little early this year. Normally, I don't start until the weekend before Thanksgiving. I like to be decorated at Thanksgiving because all of my family would come to me in Florida from Ohio. We'd celebrate Thanksgiving and then immediately transitioned into Christmas because I wouldn't see them for Christmas. So it was just part of sharing John's family's tradition with my own by being decorated. This year, I've had to start early just because of our schedule and some travel that we have planned. So I'm hopeful that I'll have most of it knocked out by the end of this weekend. But we'll see. And luckily for me, I have a husband. Really, the real reason I do all of this is for my husband, right? It's his tradition. He loves it. I myself, I could do one tree and be very happy, but he grew up with it and has an expectation, and Christmas isn't Christmas without it. So I really do it because he loves it.
Yeah, that's awesome.
That's very sweet.
That's awesome.
Don't tell him I said that.
Nope.
I don't want him to think I'm being nice to him for once.
No.
I jest, of course.
Lynn, this has been such a great discussion today. It has been such an honor to host you. Thank you so much for coming. And
Yes, thanks so much for coming on. I can't think of a better way to kick off our very first Christmas season on the podcast, and we absolutely hope that you will join us again.
Joy, cue the Christmas music.
thanks a lot, Lynn. Thanks, Mo. Thanks for tuning in to Hit the Road with Mo and Joy. If you have questions or topic suggestions, we would love to hear from you. You can connect with us through our website at hittheroadwithmoandjoy.com. On the website, you'll find all the things: socials, blogs, recommendations, inspiration, and things you might need to know for upcoming travel. And if you'd like to partner or advertise with us and connect with our amazing audience across the country, feel free to reach out to us at hittheroadwithmoandjoy.com/media. That's it from us this week, but don't forget, get out there and explore.